The reserve or Sanctuary Belize sits on a 14,000-acre plot of land along the sea in the Stann Creek District. Construction of what was supposed to be a haven for more than 1,000 American investors began, but scammer Andris Pukke and associates needed an additional $500 million to complete the project. News 5 journeyed to the location of the failed project, where the dreams of the American investors died, a cemetery of lies and deceit. The road leading to Sanctuary Belize was indicative that it would have led us to some sort of retirement community. But members of the Sanctuary Belize security were on guard. Request for access to the private property was denied. But from what the Prime Minister was told, it's quite a beautiful place.
I gather Sanctuary Belize is somewhere in the south. I don't know if it's around the city. As I said, I've never been there in my life. And worse, no way I would remedy what might have been an omission. I hear it's quite a beautiful place.
The now infamous Sanctuary Bay real estate scam and the allegations made by the Federal Trade Commission against the Prime Minister and members of his government prompted Barrow to quickly rubbish the F.T.C's findings. The company Sanctuary Bay Limited came up.
We were talking in the press conference about Sanctuary Bay, and I'm sure there is a company by the name of Sanctuary Bay.
That company exists, and it was incorporated by the Prime Minister's law firm Barrow and Williams in 2005. During the press conference, PM Barrow told the media that Cabinet never discussed Sanctuary Bay. This 2011 confidential Cabinet memo, however, says that Cabinet did discuss Beltrade's request for Eco Futures Belize Limited to receive fiscal incentives for infrastructure development at Sanctuary Bay. Since the leak of the memo, the interpretation is that the Prime Minister misspoke.
Well, that is absolutely not the case. What has been produced is a copy of a Cabinet confidential showing that indeed a fiscal incentive was granted to a company called Eco Futures Limited. I do see, having been shown the document, that there was, in terms of the location of the proposed development for which Eco Futures was being given a concession, that it said Sanctuary Bay, but that's not the same as saying that we gave Sanctuary Bay as Sanctuary Bay a concession, or that we had any discussion in Cabinet about any difficulties that Sanctuary Bay might have been happening. I maintain that position. There was, as far as I can remember, never any discussion about Sanctuary Bay and its finances in our Cabinet. You will note that Eco Futures, apart from being clearly a different company, there must have been, as it turned out later on, some interrelationship with Sanctuary Bay Limited or Sanctuary Bay Estates Limited or whatever. But you will note that apart from the fact that the application for the concession and the grant of the concession was to Eco Futures Limited, not to Sanctuary Bay, that the principals, the shareholders of Eco Futures were all Belizeans, Mr. Usher and Mr. Bailey and somebody. There's nothing at all to do with any Pukke or any American. So clearly, we're talking about two different things completely.
But those two different things have seemingly become one, both part of the multi-million-dollar scam. According to the F.T.C's findings, Eco Futures Belize was also doing business on behalf of Sanctuary Bay, Sanctuary Belize, and the Reserve. The timeline, however, is not clear. The Cabinet confidential memo is dated 2011.
And that was what, in 2011? Right, and what was raised at the press conference was this allegation that Pukke or somebody like that had spoken to 4 ministers in 2014, who said they would raise the matter in Cabinet. That absolutely, I maintain, did not happen. And what happened in 2011 had to do with Eco Futures Limited, even if it turns out that the development for which they got the concession in their names was to take place at a place called Sanctuary Bay. Not the same as Sanctuary Bay Estates or Sanctuary Bay Limited. So we're talking about two different things. Okay?
The difference here, according to the Prime Minister, is Sanctuary Bay, the location, as opposed to the company.
Right. It makes reference to Sanctuary Bay as the site of their project or the site
Yes.
of the operations, but how could it not make a difference that this was a company called Eco Futures Limited, owned, as was stated on the application form, by 3 Belizeans. On the face of it, no connection with any American, any of the people afterwards named, or any American at all. That has to make all the difference in the world. And that took place in 2011. Belizeans coming forward to apply for a fiscal incentive, which after the application was properly vetted by the people at Beltrade, came to Cabinet with a recommendation for the fiscal incentive to be granted. And that happened. That has nothing to do with what took place afterwards, and certainly with anything in 2014 about which there is a claim that Pukke or whatever the name is, spoke to ministers who promised to take up some financial difficulty in Cabinet. I am telling you that did not happen.
Reporting for News 5, Hipolito, Novelo.